All right, so it seems like a lot of you are really interested in what's going on at the border
Yeah.
and how it all ties into these stories we're hearing about crime.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic.
It is a hot topic,
Yeah.
and we're going to try to help you see through the noise a little bit
Right.
and really look at what's going on. We're diving into a whole mix of stuff here.
Absolutely.
We've got news clips, speeches,
Mm-hmm.
expert opinions, even,
Social media.
yeah, some of those very passionate takes from social media.
Gotta love those.
You got to love those.
Right?
So
Yeah.
the goal here is really to help you understand what's actually happening at the border.
Right. And you know what's at stake here? We're not just talking about abstract policies.
Right.
This is about people's lives, the
Yeah.
safety and security of our communities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, when you see stories like what happened in Aurora, Colorado,
Oh, yeah, that was just awful.
it's just horrific. I mean, a family terrorized in their own home, kidnapped, tortured.
It's hard to even imagine.
It's just unimaginable. And it's all linked back to this Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua.
The TDA, yeah, they're a brutal group. The level of violence described in those reports is just chilling.
And what's even more disturbing is that some officials initially downplayed the whole thing.
Right, they didn't seem to take it as seriously as they should have.
It makes you wonder if they would have reacted differently if they knew this gang might be operating all over the country.
It's a good question. It certainly raises concerns about how we assess these threats and how we respond to them. We need to be proactive, not reactive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, it's not just about gangs either. The whole sanctuary city debate is getting even more intense.
Oh, yeah. That's a real flashpoint.
It is.
Yeah.
You've got Mayor Adams in New York, who used to be a big supporter of sanctuary policies.
Right.
Now he's saying it's putting too much strain on the city and making it less safe.
Well, he's seeing the effects firsthand. New York is bearing a huge brunt of the migrant influx.
Yeah, and it's not just New York.
Yeah.
This is happening in cities all across the country.
And it's forcing a lot of people to rethink their stance on these policies.
Meanwhile, you have cities like San Diego that are actually strengthening their sanctuary protections.
It really highlights the divide in how people view this issue.
Yeah, there's definitely no easy answers here.
No, there isn't.
But it's a conversation we need to have.
Absolutely. And, we can't talk about border security without talking about President-elect Trump.
Oh, he's definitely not shying away from this issue. He's back with his strong stance on border security.
Yeah.
And promises of some pretty major changes.
Like the largest deportation operation in American history.
That's a pretty bold statement.
It is. It's definitely got people talking. And then there's the idea of this new Department of Government Efficiency with Elon Musk at the helm.
Talk about shaking things up.
Right. It's definitely generating a lot of buzz, some positive, some negative.
Yeah, you've got Democrats calling it the President Musk administration.
Right.
And saying that Trump is being influenced by outsiders.
But then you have people like Tom Homan, the incoming border czar, who is fully on board with these tough measures.
Yeah, he's definitely not mincing words.
Hmm.
He's talking about ending catch and release, enhancing ankle monitoring, and deporting criminal migrants even to countries without repatriation agreements.
He's sending a clear message that things are going to be different under this administration.
It's definitely a more hardline approach than we've seen in recent years.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And speaking of taking a strong stance, we have to talk about what Texas is doing.
Oh, yeah, those billboards.
Those billboards.
Yeah.
They've launched this campaign along the border, and it's definitely causing a stir.
They're pretty hard-hitting. They depict the dangers that migrants face, particularly the risk of sexual assault.
And they're not holding back. They're really trying to deter people from making that dangerous journey.
It's definitely a controversial approach.
It is. Some people are calling it fear-mongering.
Right.
But I think it's important to be upfront about the risks involved.
Yeah, I agree. It's a harsh reality, but it's a reality nonetheless.
And on top of all of this, we've got a government shutdown looming.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And guess what? Border security is right at the center of the fight.
It's a major sticking point in the budget negotiations.
It seems like everything is tied to this political standoff.
Well, you got the debt ceiling issue, too. It's a whole mess.
It is. And, with figures like Elon Musk and President-elect Trump having influence on certain Republican lawmakers, it just adds another layer of complexity to the whole thing.
Yeah, it's definitely not a simple situation.
It's not. And, some lawmakers are even talking about putting forward someone like Elon Musk or Vivek Ramaswamy as Speaker of the House.
Wow.
I know, right? It just shows you how much frustration there is with the current gridlock.
People are looking for a shakeup.
They are. They want someone who can actually get things done.
It's understandable, but whether those proposals have any real chance of succeeding is another question.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see how that all unfolds. But one thing's for sure, this border security issue isn't going away anytime soon.
No, it's not. It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Yeah,
But we're going to keep digging into it and try to help you make sense of it all.
that's what we do here at the Deep Dive.
Absolutely.
So stay tuned. We've got a lot more to cover.
We do.
And hopefully by the end of this, we'll all have a little bit better understanding of what's really going on at the border and what it means for all of us.
I think so. All
All right, so let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Sounds good. And this whole thing, it brings up another aspect that we got to talk about.
Yeah.
It's something that often gets lost in all the political back and forth,
Right.
the human cost of this crisis.
It's not just about numbers and policies.
Exactly. This is about real people, real lives being impacted.
And, you see that so clearly in stories like the woman who was set on fire on the New York City subway.
Oh, yeah, that was just horrifying.
Absolutely horrifying, just a brutal attack.
And to think that happened in such a public place.
Right, in broad daylight.
It's unimaginable.
And the suspect in the case is allegedly in the country illegally.
Right.
It adds another layer of tragedy to this whole thing.
It really does.
And, it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
are we doing enough to keep our cities safe?
It's a valid question, especially when you see these kinds of attacks happening.
Governor Hochul has been talking about improvements in subway safety.
Right.
But it's hard to feel reassured when you see these kinds of incidents.
It feels like there's a disconnect between what officials are saying and what people are actually experiencing.
Yeah, it does. And, when you combine that with President-elect Trump's talk about an invasion and mass deportations,
Right.
it's not surprising that people are feeling anxious and on edge.
That's a very charged issue.
It is. It really is.
And, Trump's rhetoric, it definitely evokes strong emotions.
Yeah, some people see it as a sign that he's taking the issue seriously.
Right.
And he's ready to take action.
While others worry that it's going to further divide the country.
Right, and maybe even incite violence.
It's definitely adding fuel to the fire.
No doubt about it. And speaking of things heating up,
Oh, boy.
we can't ignore the fact that the government is currently shut down.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's a big one. And it seems like every issue, including border security, is just caught up in this political standoff.
Well, it's a symptom of the deep partisan divide in our country.
Yeah.
It's become almost impossible to find common ground.
It feels that way sometimes.
Yeah, and with the debt ceiling looming, it's hard to see a clear path forward.
It's like everyone's digging in their heels,
Yeah.
and the American people are the ones who end up suffering.
That's usually how it goes, unfortunately.
And then to make matters even worse, you've got people throwing out these wild ideas, like making Elon Musk or Vivek Ramaswamy the Speaker of the House.
I mean, it just shows you how desperate some people are for change.
Right. They're looking for anyone who can break through the gridlock.
Yeah.
It is. But whether those proposals have any real chance of succeeding is another question entirely.
Yeah, time will tell on that one.
But, amid all this political drama and finger-pointing, we can't forget about the human cost of this crisis.
Absolutely.
I keep coming back to those billboards in Texas, those stark warnings about the dangers that migrants face.
They're definitely meant to provoke a reaction.
They are.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think it's important to acknowledge that those dangers are very real.
Right.
We can't pretend that crossing the border illegally is a safe and easy journey.
Especially for women and children.
Exactly. They are particularly vulnerable.
It's a complex issue.
It is.
On the one hand, we want to protect vulnerable people.
Right.
On the other hand, we need to deter illegal immigration.
And then you've got these criminal organizations like this Tren de Aragua gang.
The TDA.
Yeah.
They're preying on people's desperation.
It's a dangerous situation.
It is. And the fact that they're operating in major U.S. cities is incredibly concerning.
It feels like we're dealing with a multi-layered problem here.
Yeah.
With no easy solutions. You've got the humanitarian crisis.
Right.
You've got the economic factors.
Security threats.
Right. And then on top of it all, you've got the political battles over how to even address it.
It can feel overwhelming.
It really can.
Yeah.
But I think the first step is just to acknowledge the complexity.
Right.
We can't just bury our heads in the sand and pretend it's not happening.
We need to have honest, open discussions about the challenges we face.
And that's why I think these deep dives are so important.
I agree.
We're taking the time to really unpack the issue.
Right.
Hear different perspectives.
And hopefully make some sense of it all.
So where do we go from here?
Well, President-elect Trump is taking office soon.
Right.
And it's clear that immigration and border security are going to be top priorities for him.
Yeah, his campaign promises suggest a significant shift in policy.
especially when it comes to enforcement and deportation.
But how those policies will actually be implemented and what their long-term impact will be, well, that remains to be seen.
It does.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah,
But I'm sure we'll be here diving into those developments as they unfold.
absolutely.
And remember, the conversation doesn't end here.
No, it doesn't.
Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay curious.
That's the key.
All right, so we've spent a lot of time talking about the problems, the
Yeah.
human cost, the political battles, the security risks.
Yeah, it can be a lot to take in.
It really can.
Yeah.
But I think it's time to start looking at some potential solutions,
Okay.
or at least the approaches that are being proposed.
Right.
So what are some of the ideas being discussed? What are we looking at here?
Well, one thing that seems clear is that President-elect Trump is committed to a much stricter approach to immigration enforcement.
Yeah.
He's talked about making deportations a major priority,
Yeah, he has.
especially for those who have committed crimes while in the country illegally.
Yeah, and he even suggested that countries like Venezuela will be forced to take back their citizens,
Right.
even if there aren't any repatriation agreements in place.
Yeah, I mean, that could be difficult to enforce.
It sounds like it could be.
Past administrations have struggled with that, getting
Mm.
countries to cooperate with deportations, especially when there's no formal agreement.
Right.
But, Trump's supporters believe that his willingness to use economic pressure or other forms of leverage could be more effective than previous approaches.
So it's kind of a high-stakes gamble.
Yeah, it is.
It could yield results, but it could also backfire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It could damage relationships with key allies
Right.
and lead to unintended consequences.
So it's a risky move.
It is.
And then there's the plan to crack down on those who violate the terms of their release,
Right.
particularly those wearing ankle monitors.
You're right.
Tom Homan, the incoming border czar, has talked about working closely with local law enforcement to track down anyone who poses a threat.
Yeah, that raises some interesting questions about civil liberties and, the potential for overreach.
Right. It's a tough balance.
It is.
You want to keep communities safe,
Right.
but you also don't want to create a climate of fear and suspicion.
Absolutely.
And, speaking of technology, it seems like it's going to play a bigger role in all of this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You've got Elon Musk's potential involvement in government efficiency,
Right.
the use of apps for processing asylum claims.
It's definitely going to be a factor.
Yeah, and of course, we can't ignore the economic side of this issue either.
Right.
There's a lot of debate about the impact of immigration on jobs and wages and the costs associated with all these border security measures.
Yeah, it's a complex issue.
It is.
And it's often oversimplified in political debates.
Yeah, it feels like it.
We need to look at the data
Right.
and consider the long-term implications of different policies.
It's clear that there are no easy solutions.
No, there really aren't.
This border security issue, it's
Yeah.
so intertwined with so many other challenges.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
crime economics, humanitarian concerns, political agendas. It can feel overwhelming at times.
It can. But I think it's important to remember that even small steps in the right direction can make a difference.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We need to focus on finding common ground,
Right.
having honest conversations,
Yeah.
and working together to find solutions that are both effective and humane.
I think that's really the key takeaway here.
Yeah, it
This is a complex issue.
It is.
There are no easy answers.
No,
But we have to keep talking about it.
absolutely.
We have to keep searching for solutions.
Right.
And we have to remember that this is about more than just politics.
Exactly.
This is about people's lives.
It is.
It's about our shared future.
That's right.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, it's been great talking about this with you.
You've given us a lot to think about, and I hope our listeners will continue this conversation.
I hope so too.
Stay informed, stay engaged, and keep asking those tough questions.
That's what it's all about.
That's what we do here at The Deep Dive. Until next time, stay curious.